First story. I cut all contact with my family after my bullying siblings did a prank ruining my life dream, then laughed, humiliated me, and uploaded me crying on their social media. Now mom, who supported their prank, is begging me to reconcile, while siblings increased their harassment, so I called the cops on them. So I have posted a story on here before, and I got some pretty good advice, so please help. Here's what happened. I 27F have always had a complicated relationship with my family. They've always been the type of people who think any joke is fine as long as someone laughs, no matter who gets hurt. Over the years, I've tried to brush it off and not let it bother me too much. But this time, they crossed a line I can't ignore. Recently, I achieved something big in my life. I bought my first home after saving for years. It's something I worked incredibly hard for, sacrificing vacations, nights out, and basically anything extra to make it happen. I was beyond proud of myself and excited to finally have a place to call my own. Naturally, I wanted to share this milestone with my family, even though our relationship has always been rocky. A few weeks ago, we had a family dinner to celebrate my new home. Everything seemed fine at first. They congratulated me, asked about the house, and seemed genuinely happy for me. But halfway through the night, my brother 30M and sister 25F handed me an envelope. They said it was a surprise to help me with my house. I opened it, and inside was what looked like a legal notice, stating that my house purchase had been canceled because of a clerical error, and that it was now being sold to someone else. It even had an official-looking letterhead, my name, and details about the house. I was in complete shock. Everyone around the table started laughing, and my brother yelled, "Gotcha!" Turns out, they had faked the letter and thought it would be hilarious to see my reaction. I burst into tears, which only made them laugh harder. They even recorded the whole thing on their phones to post on social media. When I finally managed to speak, I told them how cruel this was. Buying this house was the biggest thing I'd ever done, and they turned it into a joke at my expense. Their response: "You're so sensitive. It was just a prank. Lighten up." I left the dinner early, completely heartbroken. A few days later, I decided I'd had enough. This wasn't the first time they'd pulled a prank like this. Over the years, they've humiliated me countless times. Once ruining a job interview outfit by accidentally spilling coffee on it. Another time pretending to lose my dog just to see me panic. I cut off all contact. I didn't make a scene. I just stopped responding to messages, blocked them on social media, and declined invites to family events. Now, I'm getting guilt-tripping messages from extended family saying I'm being selfish and tearing the family apart. My mom even left me a voicemail crying about how much she misses me and begging me to come back. But I can't bring myself to forgive them. This prank felt like the final straw, and I don't see how I can trust them again. So, Reddit, Ada for cutting off my family over this prank. Top comment. Best confidence 1560. You're rightfully upset because it wasn't a prank. It was bullying. The "it was just a joke" BS is something every bully does to justify humiliating people. They thought it would be fun to upset you on your big night, and then take videos of it and post it on social media. And your mother is crying that she misses you. No, she had an opportunity there to rip them a new one about their behavior, and about treating you with kindness and respect. And she thought it would be better to go along with the prank. You deserve better than this. I'm glad you finally decided to call an end to their bullying. Don't let them or any extended family members pressure you into doing anything you don't want to do. I'm sorry that they couldn't just be happy for you for your achievement. Congratulations on your new home. Wait to add. Thank you for the kind awards. I just hope OP gets some measure of peace from these people. She has earned it. OP updated the post. Edit. Thank you all for the advice and support. I wanted to provide an update because things have escalated in ways I never expected. After I went no contact with my family, I thought they'd eventually accept my decision and move on. But that hasn't been the case. For the past few weeks, my brother and sister have been trying to get me to see the funny side of their prank. They've shown up at my house uninvited multiple times, banging on the door and demanding to talk to me. At first, I ignored them, but it became clear they weren't going to stop. One evening, I caught them standing outside my house with their phones out, recording themselves while yelling things like, "She can't take a joke," and "Let's see how long she can hide." It felt more like harassment than an attempt to reconcile. The final straw came when I discovered my car had been egged overnight, and my security camera caught my brother and sister doing it. I confronted them through text, telling them they'd crossed a line and needed to stop. Their response: "You're so dramatic. You're going to laugh about this one day." At this point, I realized I couldn't handle this on my own. I went to the police and filed a report for harassment. They took my statement, reviewed the footage from my security camera, and agreed that this behavior was unacceptable. My siblings were contacted and warned to stay away from me. Their reaction: more mocking messages, calling me a snitch, and accusing me of tearing the family apart. Some of my extended family members are siding with them, saying I should have just talked it out instead of involving the police. But others, especially those who've seen the footage, are horrified and fully support my decision. I feel a mix of relief and sadness. It's hard to accept that my own family could treat me this way, but I also feel safer knowing I've taken steps to protect myself. I'm focusing on building a new life in my home and surrounding myself with people who respect and support me. To anyone out there struggling with toxic family dynamics, you're not alone, and it's okay to set boundaries to protect your peace. Thank you for giving me the strength to stand up for myself. Second story. Fiancé hid my mom's cheating because he was scared that I would find out about his affair. 3 weeks ago, I had to sit with my dad listen to my mother tell that she wanted a divorce because she had been having an affair with a guy she met on the internet for a year now. Now the first part I understood. My dad had already talked to me that their marriage just wasn't the same as before, and although he was doing his best to change things up, my mom wasn't caring about it anymore. But the affair part got me really angry, and I felt a bit heartbroken, especially because she kept repeating that she knew my dad didn't deserve that, and how angry she was at herself. So I called my fiancé because I was upset, and I needed to talk to someone. Except that when I told him about it, he just goes about that, and proceeds to tell me that he already knew. For 5 months. Because he would often see my mother and the man at a restaurant near his work. I asked him why he hadn't told me about it, and he said that he just didn't know how to do it, and there never seemed to be a right time for it. After that he said he would give me some space, and we haven't talked much since. I asked him out so we could have dinner and talk, but he just sat in silence and wouldn't even look me in the eye. I have been staying at my parents' house to help my dad, and my fiancé has yet to show up. We're supposed to get married next year, and I thought at first that we should change the date for later. But right now I'm feeling so uncomfortable and doubtful that I even wonder whether we should get married. I love him, but there is this weird feeling that I can't shake, and his behavior through this entire thing isn't helping. TLDR, parents are getting a divorce because my mother has been having an affair for a year. I told my fiancé and found out that he knew about the affair for 5 months. Now he's avoiding me, and I'm having doubts about marrying him. OP added this info in the comments. A lot of people seem to think that I'm blaming my fiancé, and this is not the case. I'm not blaming him, and I'm well aware of the fact that my mother is the one at fault in this entire situation. My point is that he's been avoiding me, even though I could really use his support in this moment. I'm not even wanting to have a talk about what happened, because I know we can come back to it once the dust has settled. I just want someone to talk about mundane things, and to try and keep my mind away from the entire mess that's going on right now. But it seems I'll have to keep trying until then. Relevant comments. Hoping Tothriff. It's your mother that put everyone in this situation. She wasn't even being discreet. Odd that he saw her so many times, but she never saw him. And very poor timing for her to announce this right before your wedding. I am sorry you are the one who got royally screwed. OP. From what he said, she saw him twice. During both times, she was just talking with the guy. So that's why she probably thought he didn't see anything besides that. Except he did. Or maybe she just didn't care. Ka_work. How much did he know? Just seeing your mom with some other guy at a restaurant doesn't necessarily mean it's an affair. Could be a work lunch meal or whatever. OP. Sometimes they were just talking. Other times things evolved to hand-holding and kisses. Ka_work. The him not being there for you during this mess is a separate issue. Seems weird he would just back off all of a sudden. Does he feel like you blame him? OP. I don't think I've given him any indication of blaming him. During the phone call where he told me the details, I was pretty speechless. I just asked him questions of how long this was going on and what he saw. Also the locations and when was the last time he saw it happen. I also asked why he hadn't told me anything. I told him we needed to talk in person and just kept him updated on the situation through texts. When we went out for dinner, he was already acting kinda weird. And to be honest, I felt weird too, so I decided to talk about other topics before we could have a proper conversation. He just kept mostly to himself and would answer more than talk, and I decided to drop it before it got worse. So now we just talk through very short messages, and phone calls are almost non-existent, since he will either hang up fast or not pick up at all. Also, we don't share a place at the moment since he had to move in with a friend for a few months, since it's closer to where they work, and we had to adjust our budget to move somewhere close in the future, rather than now. Dr. Alert. I'll play the devil's advocate. Would you have believed him? What would you have done in his place? Also, perhaps he thought, not my monkeys, not my circus, and he decided that he shouldn't meddle in his in-laws' relationship. OP. To be honest with you, I would have believed. As I said in my post, I knew my parents' marriage wasn't in a good place at all. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that infidelity wasn't something that I wondered about, even though I would rather think that my parents weren't capable of that. After a while you notice things and some ideas become not so far-fetched anymore. So yeah, I would have believed, and I would rather he commented on these meetings he had witnessed, and then went to the more incriminating stuff. Update read it 3 months later. Making this update so I can move on from that. Not a happy update, but here we go. After making the post I realized that maybe I was being accusatory, and that I should try being more open with him. I invited him to my place so we could have an honest talk. He didn't show up and instead decided to call me. I was already having a hard time, so this didn't sit right with me, which led to us arguing through the phone, and ended up with my now ex-fiancé revealing that he had been having an affair himself with a woman from work. The entire thing had been going on for almost a year, and at first he thought it was just a one-time thing, except it kept happening, and he figured out that he had feelings for her. It was around that time that he moved to his friend's place, so he could take her there whenever his friend wasn't home, which was often. This was why he didn't tell me about my mother's affair. He felt guilty, and he started feeling paranoid. After the whole thing blew up, he got scared and was trying to do damage control, including trying to break up with her. Except he didn't want to break up with her, so it was going to be me instead. We last spoke to each other in November once he finished canceling the stuff that was already planned. He wanted to keep contact in the future, which I denied. I moved closer to where my dad lives. His divorce still isn't finished, but it'll get there. My mother has been living with her boyfriend since the whole thing came to light. I haven't spoke to her since, even though she tried to contact once I canceled the wedding. I'm still not in a good shape emotionally, but I'm trying to get there. I truly wish no one ever goes through that. TLDR, ex-fiancé didn't tell me about it, because he was scared that I would find out about his affair. Third story. Coworker used my traumatic emergency to bully me at work. I've 29F officially had it, and I'm commencing a campaign of relatively benign psychological warfare against one of my coworkers. I'll call him Dan. Dan started at the company in November 23rd and seemed cool at first, but I have slowly grown to find him very annoying. There are too many examples to get into, but I would describe him as an entitled, impertinent sourpuss with a nicotine addiction and a self-professed problem with following the rules. WTF, why would you brag about this at work? He is my same age and role. FTR, I also arguably have a nicotine addiction, but I don't make it obvious in my effing place of work. So, a few days ago, I regrettably had a horrifying emergency on my way into work. The whole ordeal unfolded very quickly. And while I was unmuted on a work call with my whole team, I don't want to go into details of the emergency, but it involved me getting caught up in an altercation that had nothing to do with me, but resulted in me having a very public panic attack that my entire work team also heard over the phone. I am diagnosed with panic disorder. Edit. I am not supposed to discuss the details of this situation, as it is an open case with local law enforcement. On my way to work, I was arrested, and I was held in jail for 36 hours. I had a panic attack while being arrested, and then 5 more while I was in jail, because I was denied access to my prescribed medications. You can pass your judgment on whether I deserved it, but you don't effing know me, my other coworkers, my family, my friends, and the larger local community, not the cops, have been extremely supportive. Think what you want, but F the police, and I will probably never be able to trust them again. I was indisposed. Edit. In jail for a couple days after the emergency, and once I was able to return, my work computer was still in my office building, which I ultimately never reached, so I couldn't do any actual work beyond sending emails messages off my phone. Almost all of my coworkers who I've worked with for about 7 years now at this company were incredibly supportive, sent me kind messages, and were generally concerned for my well-being, having directly heard me go through this ordeal in real time, and I still feel mortified. So their support really means the world. A few coworkers even contacted every single person I had scheduled meetings with to let them know I had an emergency. They seamlessly picked up my critical work tasks and offered to drop off my computer at home for me. I mean, these people rock, and that's why I've been at the company for 7 years. Dan, however, has appeared to have seized upon this opportunity, my traumatic emergency, to highlight my shortcomings. In the immediate aftermath of the emergency, when my coworkers were exchanging messages of support and concern about me, Dan sent no such messages, and he didn't ask how he could support. Instead, he inserted an absolutely useless recommendation into the team group chat about how I could have avoided this emergency in the first place. He immediately tried to turn my trauma into a learning moment, as if it was so obvious that this would have happened to me because of the choices I made leading up to it. She was asking for it in that dress, if you ask me. Gross. Then, I am finally recuperated enough. Edit. Out of jail to look at my phone, a couple days after the emergency. I get a message from a PM that I work with, asking me about the status of a report that I had put Dan in charge of. The PM tells me that they spoke with Dan yesterday, and that Dan said the report was in my court, but interestingly enough, Dan conveniently failed to mention to the PM during that conversation that I had suffered a major emergency that Dan had witnessed just the day before, that I was presently indisposed, and that I would likely need some time to recover. Not to mention, Dan had never communicated to me prior to the emergency that the report was ready for me to review. He kept saying he had one more task to complete, so F him. Despite the chaos and trauma of that terrible event, I feel a renewed sense of gratitude for my life, my freedom, and the everyday privilege of being alive and surrounded by a supportive community. And I feel even more protective of it. Now things can change in an instant in ways that you couldn't possibly imagine. I truly do not have any more time for bullshit. And for this reason, I feel absolutely justified in canceling Dan from my life. I'm not going to try to get him fired or anything like that. But I refuse to spend my days in close proximity to him at the office. We currently sit right next to each other in a 2-desk office space. But there are other desks in an adjacent office space that I can use. So I plan to move my desk away from his. He can say goodbye to any and all opportunities to support me on my projects. I no longer trust him to be a reliable and respectful team player. And most importantly, if he decides to confront me, which he might, because he's actually alarmingly confrontational, I will calmly explain to him that I find his professionalism and working style to be unaligned with what I'm looking for on my projects and in my career. He'll have to find someone else to work with. Good luck. You piece of SHT. That's all. Thanks for listening. Comments. Dave CG. F it, sink him. Communicate to the PM his messages about one more task to complete and express your surprise that he didn't mention this when the PM asked him about it, especially with his awareness that you would be unavailable for several days. Then disengage from him in the workplace. OP. This is precisely the plan. Thank you for your support. Pleasant Mouse 6259. Crucify him the first chance you get. Throw him under the bus every chance you have. Shine a light on his mistakes, failures, shortcomings, and make him look as bad as he tried to make you look. Good luck, and I hope you're doing better now. OP. Absolutely diabolical. I love it, thank you. I am feeling much better. A few more tough days ahead, I'm afraid. But I'm taking it day by day. MTNGRL 60. You are an inspiration. I am sending grandma hugs your way. OP. Awa, thank you so much. MTNGRL 60. You're very welcome. I'm so sorry you had to go through such a traumatic event. And honestly, as a mother of 3 daughters, I am so incredibly impressed with how you are handling all this. Well done. OP. OMG, I'm an oldest sister of 3 daughters. I was almost like, wait. Mom. Lol. My mom isn't a grandma quite yet, soon though. MTNGRL 60. Lol. I'm actually not a grandma either. My daughters are more than old enough, but I have 2 of them that are like no way at all. And my oldest is like maybe in the next couple of years. So I always say I'll send your grandma hugs because I'm old enough to be one. But I honestly could care less if I ever become. Not because it makes me feel old or anything. But I absolutely don't want my kids to think somehow my life revolves around them, or what they do with their lives, or me being a grandma. If they want kids, I want them to have them. If they don't, I couldn't care less. Which I must admit seems so shocking to ladies my age. Because when I tell them this, they look at me like, how can you say that? I just have a great time with my daughters. I think they are funny and smart and intelligent. They are amazing people in their own right. I just love spending time with them. OP. You sound just like my mom. Thanks for your words of encouragement. OP clarifies what got her arrested. It definitely wasn't an accident. But I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I was profiled as someone the police wanted to target, and they targeted me without bothering to check themselves. Having spent 36 hours in jail talking with multiple other women, you would be surprised at how many people are there without having any idea why. And it's not because they're on drugs. Since you asked, I was trying to help someone and was mistakenly and forcibly arrested by police while they were raiding a protest that I was not taking part in. The protest was right outside my office building, which I was trying to get to. I was thrown in jail for 36 hours, which is why I was indisposed. I wasn't given access to my prescribed medication, and in addition to the panic attack I suffered during the arrest, I had about 5 more over the next 12 hours, all while being totally ignored and laughed at by officers who were supposed to keep me safe. By the time I got out of jail, I was a zombie, and I couldn't even spell my own name. Also, my job does involve manual labor. I work on construction sites, install wells, and perform sampling. I'm trained to operate man lifts, nuclear density gauges, and handle hazardous substances. Man, y'all are just wow. Update 2 months later. Felt like posting an update, see original post. All my charges for misdemeanors for resisting arrest were dismissed because the police arrested me unlawfully. I am also moving forward with civil litigation against the police department, thought about just dropping it and moving in double my life. But then I saw the police body cam footage, and it is disturbing to say the least. Worse than I even remembered. It brought my partner and father to tears. They are not criers. My mother was simply hysterical and couldn't even get through the first few minutes. She said watching her child be held down and beaten while I was crying and screaming for help was entirely too much for her to bear. I'm shaking again, even recounting it now. Dan still works at my company, but we don't work together on anything anymore. I heard he got put on a PIP, but no one really confirmed that me, which is probably the appropriate course of action. I just stay out completely of his business. I'm doing great at work. I've always felt good about my job performance, BC, as I mentioned in the original post. I love my coworkers and my work really matters to me. I also stopped drinking, smoking, and I'm currently 10 days sober, which has been amazing for my productivity and my mental health. Still addicted to nicotine, damn zins. But that's the next thing to go, taking it one step at a time. Thanks to all the kind internet strangers for your support. Apparently my story will soon be made public to the media, but hopefully you don't hear about it, BC. The video is still mortifying for me, even though I clearly did nothing wrong other than panic, which isn't really wrong, given the circumstances. Plus, then my identity will be exposed, and I'll have to make a new Reddit account. Hope Dan doesn't have Reddit and find this, but at this point he knows what I think about him. Hi, Dan. Comments. Reasonable_star_959. It will all work out. You have a good attitude, despite the awful ordeal you experienced. If it happens to be made public, the people who care about you are who matter. Great for you for quitting drinking and smoking. That's amazing. Keep on going one step at a time, one day at a time. Take care, we're pulling for you. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.